Welcome back, my friends, to the sweet spot where IT leaders share their insight with other leaders and others that want to lead. My name is Carlos Vargas, and as every week, I have my two co-hosts, Howard Holton and Paul Lewis. Hello, guys. Long time no see.
Yes.
Traveling, staying home.
All those things.
Yeah. Lots of travel, some stay home.
Yep. I'm
And
headed to Ottawa and Las Vegas next week, and then next week after that, Calgary and Vancouver. So I got a couple more trips before the end of the year.
Are you doing AWS? Whatever their reInvent or whatever.
reInvent. I'm gonna say I will be in town at the same time.
It's like the week of the 14th or something, right?
It's next week. Yeah, it's the one coming up.
Oh no, I thought it was like the 14th.
No, it's the one coming up.
Oh, okay. Well then I won't be.
But I will be in Calgary and Vancouver.
I will be far out of country.
I see. No, they haven't closed their doors yet. You're still allowed to go.
No, they've closed their doors, but it's a corporate request, and so with sponsorship you can get in.
Oh, good.
To visit one of our locations.
Excellent. Good to cross the water. It's fun.
Should be, yeah.
You just need to find the test to come back. That's going to be your only challenge.
No challenge there at all. They've already arranged it.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Do they have a preset for you?
Yep.
It's cool.
When I went to UK, it was incredibly easy to find a PCR test to come back. It was every single pharmacy, every single drugstore had one. You walk in at any time. They might be a 200 square foot place, but they still had a capability to do it. It was awesome. And all results came back in 3 to 5 hours. Right? There was no 48-hour windows. It was they do it well in the UK. Wasn't cheap. Well,
he's done.
He's done. We did lose Howard. Uh-oh.
You know, that's interesting and good to know, because I was planning to probably have to head to the UK for some meetings with one of our teams.
Yeah.
For cloud development. And that was going to be one of my concerns, that we will have to do something.
Very simple, easy walk-in. You don't have to make an appointment. You can walk into any place at any time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Howard, are you back?
Guys, yeah,
I am back.
We have Howard back.
Yeah. Lost you. I'm sitting. My wireless is right there.
Oh. we were chatting in your absence. So you want to talk about people?
Yeah.
Carlos, transition us.
People. So we're talking about traveling. We're talking about getting PCR testing. But what about when someone just say no? And it's not no to drugs. It's, hey, no more. I need to go. What do you do?
Yeah, so it's I think it's the number one thing that topic of conversation for the last few months for me has really been around this great resignation. And it's within my company and outside my company. It's a huge topic of conversation. And I think it's front of mind for most people that are, in positions similar to ours, those that are in leadership. The way I've described it is it's the first time in industrialized society that universally the employee holds the power, not the employer. As far as I know, that's never happened. I could be wrong, but I couldn't come up with a time, right? Even if you look at unionization and kind of the effect that unionization had, those were all isolated incidents. There was no globalization of unions at the same place at the same time. And that really didn't shift the power to that of the employee, but rather the employee union, which is another organization, right? For the first time, I think we've seen a shift into the hands of the employee. right? And it's been so great, it's being called the Great Resignation.
Mhm.
I find it interesting that some of it is exacerbated by a 2x plus retirement rate during COVID, right? People near retirement that were looking to kind of work for a few more years, add a few more bucks to their retirement accounts, really kind of boost their retirement accounts, said, I'm out, I don't want to deal with this, I'm not working during a pandemic, and retired early, or early for them, right? So, and early for statistics, right? So we had a greater than 2x retirement rate during COVID. But more interesting than that, and it's not people who don't want to work, it's people who said, I'm not putting up with whatever it is, right? Insert thing there. I'm not putting up with poor pay. I'm not putting up with poor conditions. I'm not putting up with something that before would have been as simple as coming in the office, but now is no longer simple, right? In a lot of cases, people went, I'm exhausted. I'm worn out. I'm burned out. I don't want to, and so I have a bit of savings. So I'm just going to take a sabbatical. I'm leaving. I'm going to do nothing for a year, right? All of these things, right? All of the kind of myriad of reasons have put us in the position where, much like COVID, and we talked about this really early on during COVID, really early on, we talked about how procurement overnight seemed to snap. And it seemed to go from a 6-month process to a 90-day process, or a 6-month process to a 15-day process in many cases, right? Because, well, with everyone being remote and all of this change having to occur, we can't wait 90 days. We can't wait 9 months, right? To get tech in the hands of people. We need to do it right now. The problem is we're facing the same thing with employee retention, and I'm not seeing the same snap. I'm not seeing the same change. Right? What I'm seeing is HR is built the same way HR is built, finance is built the same way finance is built. And I find entirely too often my hands tied.
And you see the problem on both sides. So not only is your turnover rate significantly higher than it used to be, but it's also difficult to find resources that were willing to work for you at a price you're willing to pay. So like, it's both sides of that equation. Not only are you losing a dramatic amount of people, you can't fill them as quickly as you used to be able to. And then in some parts of the region, they're not even showing up once you hire them.
Yep. And I would say, if at all, right? It's not just, does it take longer? You just simply may not be able to do it. But it also comes down to look, I have a fiduciary duty to be responsible with the budget that I'm given, be responsible with my P&L, but it's also not my money. Right. So how much I'm willing to pay is what the market demands. I'm not suddenly told, hey, we know it's hard to get people, so we're just going to reduce your workload. We're going to reduce the department's responsibilities.
Right.
No one ever says that. Right? But that very well may mean I have to go back and go, yeah, I can't, my budget is no longer reasonable. Between supply chain issues, with the silicon shortage, right, which is more than just a chip shortage, right, but kind of hard supply chain issues, and then the soft supply chain issues with people, this budget is no longer going to accomplish the job, right? But it also means, well, how do I handle that, right? Let's say I have to pay people 20% more than I did 2 years ago to hire them. How do I retain people especially once they know that this is happening? And you can't it can't be a big secret. You know what I mean? It's not like you can't go, well, I mean, I'm paying them 20% more, but you're already here.
Are you envisioning across the board comp increase?
I'm envisioning across the board nightmare that I can't do anything about. That's ultimately my biggest concern. My biggest concern is I simply don't have the budget for a 20% cost increase, right? I'm already faced with people who are out of band, and the bands were written during COVID and they're just wrong. Right.
So do people,
and you only have so much OpEx budget. It probably increased by 3%, if that would be a good number. And they expect you to spend more OpEx in a different way. So therefore, doing across the board 10% is an impossible feat.
Yep.
Do, are you seeing that the people are looking for money, more freedom, more different opportunities? Like, let's say I was seeing and again, I don't know if we can mention names, but I saw a commercial that their recruitment option was like, oh, I want to work at 12 o'clock midnight shift, versus someone else, oh, I want to work at a different area. And they say, work the way you want, but be part of our company.
So,
Are you seeing that?
yes, but also that shouldn't be new. I want to be really, really clear. In the US, we are salaried employees because software developers, and this was specific to software developers were put on salary and were able to be put on salary because they didn't fit the IRS rules of an employee completely, especially within their work could not be set to a daily clock. They didn't have daily tasks that had to be done that you could measure them against because they're doing software projects. The software projects are multi-month projects, and therefore they would have these spurts of activity and spurts of inactivity, and they shouldn't be penalized for it, and the employer shouldn't be penalized for it. And so salaried was allowed. Salaried is allowed when you don't have a set clock to the things that you do. If you can get your job done at 2 a.m. and you prefer to work at 2 a.m., work at 2 a.m. The reality is, if I've got salaried employees, I shouldn't care outside of whatever KPIs are set to count the work in a positive way, right? If you're working tickets, right, you're doing desktop support, I need you there during your shift for desktop support because the entire organization relies on that shift being full. Right. If not, then I should not care as an employer. And all of the things you mentioned are all the things that people are asking for. No, I don't want to come into your office. I want the flexibility to work from wherever I'm at. Why? Because during COVID, I was able to show that I could meet and exceed all of the KPIs that were set for doing so. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
Doesn't that change the skills of leadership though? Like there are some leaders that we've promoted from being practitioners, right? So they're intimately aware of what it takes to do the work. However, there are also some leaders to which we're just good people leaders, right? And we've promoted them into that capability. If you let every individual work any hours they wish to deliver, whatever they believe they need to deliver on, isn't that very difficult for that second type of leader who doesn't really know the outcomes that need to be produced on a weekly basis?
Oh no, it's difficult for both kinds.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest, right? It's difficult for the first type because they're not necessarily heavily experienced people leaders. Right. And so they may fall into the trap of work gets done. The work I knew how to do and know how to do gets done the way I want it to get done because I know how to do it that way. And therefore, anyone that doesn't do it that way isn't necessarily producing correctly. Mm-hmm. Right. The big problem that I see there is everyone that's in that position expects everyone that works for them to produce at their level.
Right.
Rather than, whatever we determine to have been a reasonable metric. And they're not good at creating a metric. Frankly, no one's good at creating a metric. Right? If you ask any of the good people leaders, right, that fit in those categories, hey, I need you to come up with KPIs for your department, they're likely to tell you no.
Right. Or it'll just be a set of tasks, right? Here are the 15 things I need to do on a quarterly basis.
Correct. None of which actually align to the corporate strategy, none of which align to any strategy whatsoever. They're just pure tactical things that are disconnected.
Right.
But all of this really speaks to a larger issue. And the larger issue is we don't actually care about leadership. As corporations, we don't care about leadership. Right. And we haven't fostered it actively. It's occurred, right? I would argue the people on this call, many of our viewers, many of our mentors, many of the people we mentor are capable, excellent people leaders. But they're not that way because their organizations created them that way.
Right. So they're natural born into that.
Or worked really hard to become it.
Right.
Right. But it's something they did themselves. MBA programs don't teach you how to be a good people leader. They just don't. Right. There's not a college course that does a really good job of teaching you how to lead people.
Right.
Right. military service doesn't do it. I can't think of anything that teaches you how to lead people in a corporation to accomplish a goal in a fast changing environment where you don't learn it yourself. Right. Where you don't invest the time yourself along with whatever natural ability, natural talent you have. And because companies
share that with others. The sharing is also a difficult part. Like we've recently presented, our leadership point of views to other leaders, and it felt like that was the first time they heard some of this information.
That's interesting.
And that one was, the response from that one was difficult for me because we ran through it so quickly, right? We covered a lot in a little bit of time. It happens with everything that you do, especially nowadays, that I felt like we were not even an inch deep, but like a quarter inch deep and a mile wide. And thus there should have been no revelations. And yet the response would have me believe a lot of it was new. A lot of it was information. A lot of it was revelation. And that ultimately we could have spent an hour on any one of the topics that we went into. And it would have been equally well received.
Right. True.
Right. Which just highlights what I was saying. Right. We as companies, we've not invested in leadership. And that's fine when everyone's in the office, and that's fine when we measure things exactly the same way we've measured them, and we handle employees the same way we've handled them, and the rules don't change.
So back to the topic at hand, I had this very specific conversation on Monday at a dinner with a North American wide CTO, and his conjecture, his theory, because a good portion of his talented staff that have a tenure of 10 years or greater have been leaving. His storyline is that the pandemic has allowed for naturally introverted people who are perfectly fine day to day delivering on technology's needs. We're not motivated to create a resume, get out of the market, do in-person interviews, hit the streets and look for opportunities. Had opportunities come to them virtually. They were able to interview virtually, didn't leave their house. It was a technical interview, so it was easy to get through, and they were able to take these jobs without lifting much of a finger, especially a physical finger outside of their actual home. And that's why a good portion of those highly tenured, steady Eddie technologists have been leaving. Does that resonate, or do you think that's unique to him?
No, I think it absolutely does. I don't think that, I think that's the other issue with it, though, is there is no silver bullet we can point to. There's no one thing you can point to, right? It's a hurricane, an earthquake, a hailstorm, 3 tornadoes, flash fires, all at the same place, all at the same time, all with very little explanation. Right. What are the chances that all of these things are going to come together all at the same time? Right. The exhaustion from 8 hours or so of Zoom meetings a day. Right. And that's my day. Right. My day is Zoom meetings end to end. Right. Or Teams or whatever. Right. Video calls end to end. Anytime there's not a video call, you race to get done whatever you need to get done for the next video call you're presenting on, or you just sit and go, oh. Right. And so how do you manage burnout? Okay, so let's say everyone is experiencing some level of burnout. Right? Now add a layer to that where I have a leader that was never taught to be a leader. I don't necessarily know that people are going to see it that way, but they were never really taught how to be a leader. Right. And my one-on-ones are basically my leader questioning everything that I've done to determine whether I'm worth keeping on or not. That's how they make me feel. Then I haven't received a raise in like 4 years, because that seems to be relatively common. Then, I'm really uncomfortable with how my company is handling COVID, any which way. Mm-hmm. Right? They're overreacting, they're underreacting. They're forcing me to do something I don't want to do. They're not enforcing things I wish they would do. Right. Whatever your particular viewpoint is, that's not what I'm trying to get into, but you're uncomfortable with what they're doing. You're unhappy with what they're doing. You don't really feel interested and engaged, and 73 times a week a recruiter calls you.
Right.
Right. And it's no longer, do I take the crappy job the recruiter offers for 2% more money, but rather they're offering me 40% more money at 7 different companies, and I can have my pick of those companies.
Right. And my lifestyle doesn't have to change. I don't have to leave the house.
Correct. And every single one of those, I can work from home. Whereas my current employer, the one that I've invested time in, is saying I must come back to the office, even when I'm perfectly comfortable working from home. Plus, everything has shifted so much that now I've got childcare, I've got people care, I've got whatever care that requires a more flexible schedule than I ever had before. And again, somehow it worked for 18 months and now it no longer works. I'm confused why that is. Right. And no one can give me a decent answer. Right? It's all of these things that come together.
Is the increase in compensation a supply demand issue, or simply a requirement to have a 10-year plus person leave an existing organization? Or is it both?
No, I think it's both, because I'm seeing it in people that are not 10 years, right? I'm seeing it in people that only have a very short tenure, are still being offered 20, 30, 40, 50% more than they're making now.
Right. Because that's what it takes for them to leave. But there's also the skill set problem where you need a bunch of skill sets that are rarely existing. And when you find that unicorn, they're twice as much as you expect them to be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You need some, data engineer with Python and Java and 2 years of GCP. That's a unicorn that's hard to find. And when you find them, they're $500,000.
When you find them,
you just mentioned something interesting. That unicorn was not built probably within the company. He probably took some, I'm going to call it personal leadership, in saying, hey, I want to learn this piece because I had an interest, and then all of a sudden he became more valuable to the company. And then that's why then they call him, because he started doing other things. Do you see that? That
even become more valuable to the company, right? I've got a bunch of people that work for me that they've developed skills that we don't use at all because they thought it was interesting.
Right. Attractive to other companies, just not attractive to your company.
So that's what I was going. Shouldn't then the company be looking at those skills? I'll give you an example. I don't consider myself a marketing genius, but I saw a long time ago that for different companies that I work for, we needed to learn to market internally our vision the way that external companies do it. Now I have a different skill set that is not within the IT wheelhouse. But when I get on a meeting, I go, but are we doing this for external? And they look at me with eyes like, how the heck does he know that and we don't? And again, so we're hearing you that we had a similar challenge with one of our guys a couple of weeks ago. And I'm listening to you. Will helping with coaching or somewhere else help those, I don't want to call it unicorns, but those great employees that may be within your team, so they don't get to that point of the burnout, or that they don't even want to talk to you and they're like, bye, I'm leaving. What do you do to try to help that process so they don't get there?
Well, I don't think there's an easy answer. And the challenge is the right answer is hard work. Right? The right answer is your company has to remove stay in your swim lane from their vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. And it has to be way easier to introduce new technology. Yeah. So Carlos, as you're saying, everybody is getting new certifications on interesting things that are readily available now. Most large organizations are not implementing those new available technologies. So therefore they don't get to implement those skill sets, and they want to move to somewhere who does. Awesome. Big problem there is that those organizations have a hard time introducing new technologies. How are we going to affect change there? That is a difficult answer.
Well, and I think it comes down to, do you inspire the people who work for you? Do you inspire your peers to do the same?
Right.
Because those are two places that you could actually start.
Sure.
Right. I started doing one-on-ones with line employees. Right. I don't have any line employees that report direct to me. Directors report to me. Right. So, but I started doing one-on-ones with my line employees. Right. As often as I possibly can. Generally, it's one a month. You know, like I do it monthly for each of them. That's helped enormously. Right. Some of my hypos that were a little frustrated, all of a sudden they're like, wow, getting an hour a month with you means I know what direction the company is going. I feel inspired. I learned something, and it's just a chat.
Right.
Right. I don't even ask them, like, what's the status of your projects? None of that. They don't report to me.
Right.
Right. Their leaders or their leaders in most cases, I may ask, but that's not why I'm on the phone with them. What do you want to talk about? What questions do you have? Right. Some of them we'll talk video games, we talk home labbing, we talk movies, we talk like whatever, right? We'll talk books. You know me, I've got a wide range of topics I can discuss. So
wide range.
As long as they're not like, hey, let's talk about football last week, then I'm good. Right? They're like, hey, did you see the Braves game? No, I did not.
Nor will I ever.
You draw the line of football. No football talk.
No sports of any kind, really. Unless it's sports featured on a television show or movie.
Right.
And then only within the fictionalized version of that sport that appears in the television or movie, right?
Yeah. I was so surprised you caught that football.
Yeah, a friend was talking about, we went to go see the last Rapids game. Rapids is the Denver soccer team.
Okay.
I did not know that they were the Denver soccer team. So when he said it, I went, I know NFL, NBA, baseball. I don't know. The Rapids are not that. So it must be. So I said, and I know hockey. And so I said, is that soccer or lacrosse? Because he's like, soccer. Oh, sweet. I'd love to go see a game. Oh, we should go sometime. Cool. Let's go. Oh, well, it has to be next season. Oh, well, I won't be here next season. So that's all I know about soccer. We've now done 100% of my understanding of the sport. Oh, I said, I only know what appeared in Ted Lasso. And he goes, yeah, put the ball in the goal. That's all you need to know. All right. That's literally all I know.
And many games, no balls go in any goals.
Right.
0-0.
And somehow it's still exciting. So
yes,
you got me.
The goals.
So here's the only thing that you should know: entire countries go into depression when their team loses. Right.
I'm like, well, the problem is you need more than one team. Like that might be part of it. That way your team always, one of your national teams always wins.
So what's our recommendation then to keep the people we want to keep and hire the people we need to hire?
Invest in the people you want to keep. Just start by investing in the people you want to keep. Yeah. Like the fact is you cannot afford to lose your high performers. The only way you're going to ensure you don't lose your high performers is to invest your time in those high performers. Mm-hmm. And you're still going to lose some. I lost one last week. Right? Yeah. But I know for sure I've retained 7. I know for sure. Right?
Spend time, spend energy, spend some money. Right? You got to do all of those things in order to retain those resources.
Correct.
Yes.
Do you make something fun, completely different for them to, as part of that retention? Or do you think that it only should be corporate standard, like if you have stock, if you have salary or conferences?
No, I think you need to be open. Okay. Right. And it's going to vary from person to person, right? Some people, they're financially driven, so they want more money. Some people, they want to be engaged. Some people, they want exposure to the executive level, right? They just don't want to feel like they're adrift. And
I think that's the most important part. You can't do this programmatically. This isn't an HR program. right? This isn't a PowerPoint I'm gonna have to put together. This is figuring out who those top 20 people are, whatever the number is, and individually creating an experience that will want them to stay.
Yep.
You
And
just mentioned
ultimately,
something.
those are the rats deserting the sinking ship.
Right.
When hypos start leaving, first off, they follow each other.
Mhm.
And second, all the other hypos leave. Right?
Right.
When low performers leave, people breathe a sigh of relief. Let's be
Right.
honest. Right? Hey, everybody knows on their team who they believe the low performers to be. They know better than you do who their fellow who their low performers are from their fellow teammates. When
Yep.
those people leave, they go, "Oh, thank God, I don't have to deal with that anymore. I can get something done. Maybe we'll get somebody better in, but in the meantime, at least I get some relief."
Right.
When hypos leave, the other hypos go, "I don't want to take over that work. I got to go too."
So on the other side, how do you attract those skill sets you need in your organization without, blowing away your average salary, or now putting yourself in a position where your existing staff aren't paid as much as they should be?
Yeah, I think again, you have to get involved.
Yeah.
Right. I think if you're the CIO and you're not interviewing the new hires that are coming in, right? I think that's a problem.
Mm.
Right? I think it's still about investing time. And oftentimes we don't have a ton of time to invest, but I still think you're going to have to figure it out. Right. And then you're going to have to make time. Right. I think a lack of servant leadership is part of the problem. The fact is, without our employees, we're not worth a damn thing. We're not getting anything done.
Yeah.
Right. We're not the ones producing the output that pays the bills. Right. We're enabling the employees who do. And part of that means investing our time directly with them. And that goes into recruiting.
Yep. I think that's a very key recommendation is, as CIOs, CTOs, as leaders, we're used to interviewing people who report to us, right? Senior people in the organization. And while we still have to do that, in addition, we need to also interview new skill sets, new capabilities, potential high performers we want to hire. That has to be added to the types of interviews we do, regardless of where they are in the hierarchy. Yeah, that's a good and interesting change.
I definitely, as a recommendation, there's a book that I love called Leader Shift. The shifting that you have to do on the leadership and how you're used to doing things. It actually helped me a lot through everything. I'm looking at everything that we're talking. It's important for a leader to understand, hey, what if they haven't learned to do that for themselves? Because I was hearing you both talk. What if the top leader is also the one struggling, that they don't know where to go? They're getting called. So because they're getting called and all these people, hey, we have these great things, their focus that should be in how do we guide this whole team to be high performing. It's not that you don't answer the calls, but there is like that balance. You go, okay, let me learn about what the market is having for me, but how do I keep this place focused so we can move forward?
Yeah, it's the biggest challenge. I mean, ultimately, so the Simon Sinek quote is, a boss has the title, a leader has the people. I would say the COVID shift, the Great Resignation, you are not in management, you are in leadership.
Mm.
Change your focus to being that of leadership, not that of management. Don't worry about managing the day-to-day tasks. Worry about leading the people who do those tasks.
Right.
Right. And I would say clear across the board. Right. We need to really be better at leadership, and leadership also a big part is delegation. Right. Make sure you have people in place that you can delegate tasks to that aren't leadership. Prioritize leadership over everything else. Right. If you spent 8 hours doing budgets and that 8 hours needs to be spent in those one-on-ones with your hypos, You need to be able to delegate as much of that other 8 hours as you can. Hire
Right.
somebody that can do it. Delegate it. Right.
Yep.
Frankly, retention is the number one job today. Retention and acquisition, number one job today.
Yep.
Right.
Agreed.
And
Entirely.
so if you're not focused on that, refocus on that. And sometimes the one-on-ones need to be with your HR partner. Right. I have a one-on-one with my HR partner every other week.
Right.
Right. And now I'm going to have one-on-ones with my finance partner every other week.
Right.
Because that's the other challenge, right? I have an employee that has to be retained. I need to retain them. All of us do. If I go to HR and say, hey, if I go to HR and say, hey, I want to give this person 50% more pay and two bumps in band,
Yeah.
they're going to say no.
Right. Policy suggests
finance will never approve it.
Yeah.
Well, what do I do then? Okay, cool. I'm going to lose the person. Then I'm going to repost the job at the level that I need it to be at anyway, so that I can pay the next person what they need to be paid. Like, I'm not gaining anything.
Right.
Plus, they're not going to know my environment, and the choice I want currently works for us. Yeah, but
right.
finance is not going to do it.
You're going to have a year's loss of productivity in that
Correct.
decision.
Bare minimum.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't, that's it. That's it. Invest your time. Right. Your people, HR partner, finance partner, invest your time.
And your recruiter, which may or may not be the same person as your HR business partner.
True. Yeah, and I don't know how many people spend time with their external recruiter, but that's a really good point, Paul. Spend some time, like really dig in. These are the candidates I want to see. These are the things I want you to look for. Like, this is a job description, and that's good, but the job description should not be what my recruiter is focused on. My recruiter should be focused on the things I care about, which doesn't necessarily align with the job description. Right. Because I only care about these 4 things. And
parts of the requirements that you're willing to give on. Right. So yeah, I can't, everything I just told you is very unicorn, but here are the things I'm willing to give on. I'm willing to train on the job for. They don't have certification in this. Awesome. That's the first 3 months I'll get them to do it. No problem. Mm-hmm. And that way, that's almost an enticing feature for somebody who's coming aboard. It's like, oh, I don't actually do any work. You just need me to learn when I start. Yes, it's exactly what I need you to do. Yeah. There's also the D&I component, right? Diversity and inclusion component, right? And talking to recruiters, I was like, okay, look, you have to move female candidates to the top of the list. I need to see them. Right. Yeah, but they don't have the same qualifications. You are correct, because a woman will only apply if they meet 100%. A man will apply if they meet 70. Right. Women have to have a very high level of confidence in their skills. Men do not. Yeah. What are the chances that everyone I interview is going to interview to 100% of their resume? It's very slim. Right. So I need some balance in there. I can't keep seeing the same candidates over and over again. I need some diversity. Right. This is important, so my team becomes well-rounded. This is not throwing darts at a policy. This is I have to have more than one opinion in the damn room. Right. We've talked about that before, right? And the only way you're going to get there is to talk to the recruiter. Otherwise, you'll never see the candidates. You won't be able to hire them, and your D&I dies on the vine. Exactly. Right. You never get the value from that. So really, if you haven't already been spending time with your recruiter, now is a good time to start. Carlos. Good conversation.
Well, that was a good chat. As always, my friends, understanding your people is the reason why we're here. Trying to connect, to interact with them, because they are like Howard mentioned, they are the ones that help us move forward the company. That's the reason why we're employed. Like Howard mentioned, we're not the ones doing all the day-to-day task work. We're inspiring them, helping them to move forward so we can achieve the goals for the company. So make sure that you share, you subscribe, and we'll see you on our next episode.